Hello, welcome to Bible Study Time and welcome to my Quiet Time Bible Study. This is the time where I invite you to come and join me in the comfort of my prayer room where we discuss different topics to do with the Most High Creator God of all gods, the God of all spirits, my God, Yahweh, the God of Israel. And I needed to take a little bit of a break last week, so I went away with a couple of the members of my Daughters of Zion group, and we had a wonderful meetup. We went to Kawartha Lakes, and we went to like a tea party, and it was so much fun. Rather than record a video, I thought, you know what, I'm not just going to rush it. I'll just wait till next week, and we can just read through the book of First Maccabees in a timely fashion. So this week we are continuing on with our read-along series, and we are reading from the book of First Maccabees, which happens to be an apocryphal book. The one I'm reading out of today is the New Oxford Annotated Bible. It's the New Revised Standard Version with the Apocrypha, and this is the 5th edition, fully revised and also expanded. So this is the book that I'm reading out of. And so for those of you, the few of you who have mentioned that you do have this book, I don't want to lose my page here. There we go. Let me put my glasses on. We're going to continue reading through this very interesting book. I am on chapter number 4, and so I'm just going to jump right into it. Chapter number 4, and that is on page 5092. And if I didn't mention, for anybody who's new here, my Hebrew name is Ahava, which is one of the many ways that you can say love in the Holy Hebrew language, and it happens to be back there on the right-hand side of the wall. So, reading from the apocryphal book, First Maccabees, chapter number 4 on page 5092 of the New Oxford Annotated Bible. Let's begin in verse number 1. Now, Georgius took 5,000 infantry and 1,000 picked cavalry, and this division moved out by night to fall upon the camp of the Jews and attack them suddenly. Men from the citadel were his guides, but Judas heard of it, and he and his warriors moved out to attack the king's force in Emmaus, while the division was still absent from the camp. When Georgius entered the camp of Judas by night, he found no one there, so he looked for them in the hills, because he said, "These men are running away from us." At daybreak, Judas appeared in the plain with 3,000 men, but they did not have armor and swords such as they desired. And they saw the camp of the Gentiles strong and fortified with cavalry all around it. And these men were trained in war. But Judas said to those who were with him, "Do not fear their numbers or be afraid when they charge. Remember how our ancestors were saved at the Red Sea, when Pharaoh with his forces pursued them. And now let us cry to heaven to see whether he will favor us and remember his covenant with our ancestors and crush this army before us today. Then all the Gentiles will know that there is one who will redeem us, one who redeems and saves Israel." When the foreigners looked up and saw them coming against them, they went out from the camp to battle. Then the men with Judas blew their trumpets and engaged in battle. The Gentiles were crushed and fled into the plain, and all those in the near fell by the sword. All those in the rear, fell by the sword. They pursued them to Gazara and the plains of Idumea, and to Azotus and Jamnia, and 3,000 of them fell. Then Judas and his force turned back from pursuing them. And he said to the people, "Do not be greedy for plunder, for there is a battle before us. Georgius and his force are near us in the hills, but stand now against our enemies and fight them, and afterward seize the plunder boldly." But just as Judas was finishing his speech, a detachment appeared coming out of the hills. They saw that their army had been put to flight, and that the Jews were burning the camp, for the smoke that was seen showed what had happened. When they perceived this, they were greatly frightened. And when they saw the army of Judas drawn up in the plain for battle, they all fled into the land of the Philistines. Then Judas returned to plunder the camp, and they seized a great amount of gold and silver, and cloth dyed blue and sea purple, and great riches. On their return, they sang hymns and praises to heaven, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever. Thus Israel had a great deliverance that day. Those of the foreigners who escaped went and reported to Lysias all that had happened. When he heard it, he was perplexed and discouraged, for things had not happened to Israel as he had intended, nor had they turned out as the king had ordered. But the next year he mustered 60,000 picked infantry and 5,000 cavalry to subdue them. They came into Idumea and encamped at Beth Zur, and Judas met them with 10,000 men. When he saw that their army was strong, he prayed, saying, "Blessed are you, O Savior of Israel, who crushed the attack of the mighty warrior by the hand of your servant David, and gave the camp of the Philistines into the hands of Jonathan, son of Saul, and of the man who carried his armor. Hem in this army by the hand of your people Israel, and let them be ashamed of their troops and their cavalry. Fill them with cowardice, melt the boldness of their strength, let them tremble in their destruction, strike them down with the sword of those who love you, and let all who know your name praise you with hymns." Then both sides attacked, and there fell of the army of Lysias 5,000 men. They fell in action. When Lysias saw the rout of his troops and observed the boldness that inspired those of Judas, and how ready they were either to live or die nobly, he withdrew to Antioch and enlisted mercenaries in order to invade Judea again with an even larger army. Then Judas and his brothers said, "See, our enemies are crushed. Let us go up to cleanse the sanctuary and dedicate it." So all the army assembled and went up to Mount Zion. There they saw the sanctuary desolate, the altar profaned, and the gates burned. In the courts they saw bushes sprung up as a thicket, or as on one of the mountains. They saw also the chambers of the priests in ruins. Then they tore their clothes and mourned with great lamentation. They sprinkled themselves with ashes and fell face down on the ground. And when the signal was given with the trumpets, they cried out to heaven. Then Judas detailed men to fight against those in the citadel until he had cleansed the sanctuary. He chose blameless priests devoted to the law, and they cleansed the sanctuary and removed the defiled stones to an unclean place. They deliberated what to do about the altar of burnt offering which had been profaned, and they thought it best to tear it down so that it would not be a lasting shame to them that the Gentiles had defiled it. So they tore down the altar and stored the stones in a convenient place on the temple hill until a prophet should come to tell what to do with them. Then they took unhewn stones as the law directs and built a new altar like the former one. They also rebuilt the sanctuary and the interior of the temple and consecrated the courts. They made new holy vessels and brought the lampstand and the altar of incense and the table into the temple. Then they offered incense on the altar and lit the lamps on the lampstand, and these gave light in the temple. They placed the bread on the table and hung up the curtains. Thus they finished all the work they had undertaken. Early in the morning on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is the month of Chislev, in the 148th year, they rose and offered sacrifice as the law directs. on the new altar of burnt offering that they had built, at the very season and on the very day that the Gentiles had profaned it. It was dedicated with songs and harps and lutes and cymbals, and all the people fell on their faces and worshipped and blessed heaven, who had prospered them. So they celebrated the dedication of the altar for 8 days and joyfully offered burnt offerings. They offered a sacrifice of well-being and a thanksgiving offering. They decorated the front of the temple with golden crowns and small shields. They restored the gates and the chambers of the priests and fitted them with doors. There was very great joy among the people, and the disgrace brought by the Gentiles was removed. Then Judas and his brothers and all the assembly of Israel determined that every year at that season, the days of dedication of the altar should be observed with joy and gladness for 8 days, beginning with the 25th day of the month of Chislev. At that time, they fortified Mount Zion with high walls and strong towers all around to keep the Gentiles from coming and trampling them down as they had done before. Judah stationed a garrison there to guard it. He also fortified Beth Zur to guard it, so that the people might have a stronghold that faced Idumea. And this brings me to the end of chapter 4 of the book of First Maccabees. And I'm so grateful to the Most High Creator God for showing me once I read through the story once again, reminding me of the fact that he can restore things and he can give us the strength. Like it's like he holds us up when we are weak in our human beingness. He holds us up and strengthens us in his supernatural holiness, right? And then, if something should occur, such as similar to the defilement of the temple, we don't have to worry because God restores, right? And this is a beautiful story. And so I'm just grateful to him for that, because I never really thought about that the last time that I read through it. I want to thank you guys so much for clicking on my video, and thank you for joining me on this journey of spiritual discovery. I promise you guys that I will do a couple book reviews in the future, and we will get into some new Bible study series. But for now, I want to read through the book of First Maccabees with you. So please join me next week as we move into the next chapter. And before I say goodbye, I want to remind you that the Most High Creator, God of all gods, the God of all spirits, the God of all things, he loves all of his children.